When we were studying art, we had a lot of backlash to the fact that we were choosing a traditional art form to develop a style of our own. And there was this attitude within the art department that after a certain cut-off point almost, you know, sort of post-modernism, that anything prior to that was really irrelevant to contemporary art practice. And we were very much pressured by our tutors to look to people like Matisse and Gauguin and Picasso. Then these weren't the artists that we were interested in, these weren't the art forms that we personally felt inspired by. And what we had tried to argue with the kind of work that we did was that really, no matter which period of art you're inspired by, anything can be relevant for contemporary art expression. And we felt that the term postmodern adequately expressed that notion, if you like, that here we are, okay, we're looking at an ancient tradition, and it could be any ancient tradition, not just the Indian style that we're inspired by. But what we've hoped that we've tried to prove as artists is that it is still a relevant language for today, and it is something that contemporary audiences can relate to on many different levels. Again, going back to our own experience of growing up in a very kind of white-dominated area with hardly any other Asians around and being expected to conform to kind of Western ways of living, and that necessarily meant, in terms of the wider community, as giving up our traditional heritage. And so for us it was bringing our tradition with us into the contemporary world that we live in, not a matter of leaving the past behind and separating past from modernity. Showing that marriage between the two, and showing how they can complement each other and work together. They don't have to be in conflict. That's the past-modern term that we apply to our work. So a lot of the works in the show, like Mr. Singh's India, like the painting that we're standing in front of here, are about that historical connection between cultures and histories, and the fact that if you use a term like British, it doesn't usually mean what people think it means. It very often, if you go back in history, is something quite different to what the general perception is, and that's a kind of theme that we repeat quite a lot in our work. It's an ongoing interest for us. Part of our identity is being twins. Obviously it's a very strong part of who we are, but I don't think we have a kind of conscious awareness or element within our work that is about depicting who we are as twins. We appear in our work as twins very often as a kind of coincidence of the fact that we've grown up in this large extended family, and we happen to be two members of that family. Many of the works here are about family life and community events and celebrations, and we happen to appear as part of that family unit, and naturally we paint ourselves dressed the same because that's a way of identifying us within the work. The fact that we were twins was something that was quite heavily criticised by virtue of the fact that we were interested in the same art forms, that we developed similar styles quite independently as far as we're concerned, because it was just a natural coincidence of our shared genetics or shared interests. And so the more the tutors tried to push us apart, I think as a kind of backlash to kind of rebel against that, we decided, okay, if it's such a problem for them, we'll make sure that it's something that we will express in a more vivid way, if you like. And so we, at that point, started dressing alike, just to kind of, I guess, prove the point that, you know, if we want to be the same, we should be allowed to be the same, and it really shouldn't be anybody else's problem. It was about rebelling against society pressures, I suppose, that you expected to be a certain way, to fit in, you know, to be normal, if you like. And we felt, no, people should be allowed to express themselves how they want. If contemporary art is about self-expression, then you should let people express themselves. Literally, we can sit side by side and we will work on a piece together. I mean, every work, in any case, you know, before you even start to put paint on the canvas is a matter of discussion. So there's a lot of research that goes into many of the themes that we depict. I mean, even though in the gallery there are, I mean, it's a retrospective, so it spans over 20 years. A lot of the earlier works are individual works, have been individually produced. But as time has got on and we've had more and more commission works, or we start thinking about a series of works like the Spotlight or like, you know, Facets of Femininity, we start doing the research together, thinking about the ideas together, defining the separate works within that series, and then dividing who's going to do which work within that series. So as time's got on, I think it's become more collaborative in that sense, and we are able to, luckily, say, because our kind of thinking is very similar, we tend to agree on the big issues most of the time, so that's what's important. It allows us to have that close working relationship. Behind us took several hundred hours to produce. That's just the painting time. I mean, the research for this piece was all about the Indian Mutiny, so a lot of research went into looking at the history of that and then making links with that historical event to modern day contemporary society. But some of the works in the space, smaller works, anything from 50 hours way up to 900, close to 1,000 hours. I mean, there's one piece in the show which is called 1984, which shows the storming of the Golden Temple by the Indian government in '84. and that took close to 1,000 hours to produce, purely because not just the research, but it's the biggest piece that we've produced as well to date. And then there are a couple of films in the exhibition too, and I think any filmmaker or people who are aware of the way films go will know that it's an awful lot of time that it takes to go into producing a film. Especially with the animation. That would be over a period of several months. Yeah, there's an animation and a documentary, both of which, well, the documentary didn't take as long, I guess, but the animation 6 to 8 months, so it's quite an intense sort of method of working. The animation in the exhibition is our first one, yes, and I think that came about because we've always been very curious about how our work would translate into moving imagery. And before we were painters, we'd had a very keen interest in video and film anyway. We did a video film production course, and I think we always say that if we hadn't have become painters, we would have been filmmakers. And hopefully now we're combining both, so we're having the best of both worlds.